Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to the style studio, and also welcome to a section of my new studio in the garage that I just redesigned, did a whole makeover, super fun project. So if you want to see all the details on that, you can click the link in the description below and watch the whole process if you're into interior design, DIY type things. It was super fun. But for those of you who are new around here or don't know who I am, my name is Madison. I'm an Instagram creator, blogger, and high school fashion design teacher, and it's because of all of those loves and passions that I have in regards to fashion and sewing that I film sewing videos and tutorials to share those passions and loves that I have with you guys and hopefully inspire you. Today's video I am also really excited about because it is a thrift flip. Now I know that a lot of my projects have to do with thrifted things like tablecloths and sheets and curtains and all that kind of stuff, but today we're actually flipping a garment, taking something that was already a certain silhouette and making it into something else. So I'm super excited to share this project with you guys. I hope that you're inspired by what you can do with thrifted pieces. So if you like what you see today, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you can stay updated on new videos and projects in the future. But without further ado, let's get designing.
So this is the piece I will be flipping today. It is this gorgeous midi skirt that I found at Goodwill. And what I loved about this is that the skirt had multiple different panels that kind of created the silhouette of the skirt, and it also had this really unique striped colorful fabric along the bottom. So I thought that I could easily take this skirt and turn it into a dress because there was plenty of fabric, since this skirt was bigger than my typical size, that I could make a bodice and just attach it to the bottom of the skirt. Now, the first step in this project was to completely deconstruct this dress. Now, this dress was really unique because it had multiple different panels which created the original shape and design of the skirt. So basically what I did was just removed and cut out a section of those panels that I would then use to create the bodice for this dress, and then left the remainder wide enough to work as the skirt for this dress. So in my design, I decided that I would use part of the striped kind of edging of the skirt as my bodice, and then I would use the leftover black fabric from the panels for my straps, and then the skirt would just be created from the actual skirt of the original piece. So it wasn't a crazy deconstruction process, just taking out a waistband, removing some seams, and cutting out some panels. And after all of these pieces were deconstructed, it kind of gave me just fabric to work with, which honestly allows your brain to kind of see the project as fabric instead of an actual garment. And then I was able to kind of process through and plan out how I would turn the skirt into a dress. Now, something else that I decided to do during the deconstruction process was to remove this gold kind of ribbon edging embellishment from the bottom of the skirt. I didn't want it to be a part of my completed dress design at the end, so I just took my seam ripper and ripped that off the bottom. Since I wanted the bodice of this dress to be a complement to the bottom of the skirt where the striped fabric was, I cut off the striped fabric from the panel that I removed for the bodice, and then I actually sewed those two pieces together. So I kind of cut it in half and then sewed it together to create a wider piece and section of fabric that I would then use for the bodice. And this actually worked really well because this section was already kind of curved in the fabric, so it worked really well to kind of curve it to the upper portion of my body. Once those two pieces were cut evenly in half, I just pinned them together to attach them and create one full piece of fabric that I would then add darts to create the actual fitted section of my bodice. So these are two different sketches that I originally sketched out at the beginning to kind of get an idea of the style I wanted to make this dress, and the finished product was somewhat similar to this, but different in its own way. Now that the two striped sections of my fabric are pinned together, I'm just going to sew them together to create one full piece of fabric to then become my bodice. Once the two pieces of fabric for my bodice were sewn together, I pressed that seam open nice and flat so that it would work really well once I sew in my two front darts, and also so that it would lay flat against my body. After the seams were all pressed flat, I pinned it to my mannequin with the right side facing the mannequin so that the wrong side would be facing out, and then I went in to figure out my dart placements. I decided I wanted to put two darts in the front of this bodice for fit and also just for style, but obviously this bodice would not fit the same if there were not darts, and I decided not to put darts in the back, so fitting it to my mannequin, I was able to figure out where I wanted my two front dart placements. So after I removed the bodice from my mannequin and actually kind of measured it to myself by holding it up, I realized the dart placement wasn't exactly where I wanted it to be, so I removed the darts and just kind of moved them over about ½ an inch on my bodice and then replaced those pins in the sections that I actually wanted them to be placed at. Now that my darts are pinned where I want them, all I did was go on my sewing machine and sew my darts into place. And now that my bodice is for the most part done, I want to measure the waistband of my skirt to the high waist of my bodice to make sure that the fabrics are all the right width, and also kind of match up any seams that I want specifically matched. And since everything was the correct width, I just pinned it into place, and then all that's left is to sew it together. Once my skirt was attached to my bodice, I also went in and sewed up a section of the back of my dress. So about like 3/4, I left the top section open for my zipper. Now that the dress is starting to take shape, it's now time to add my straps. I went super simple with these straps and just basically cut out pieces of fabric that were about 2 inches wide, fold them in half, sew them together, turn them right side out, press them, and attach them. Super basic, like 1-inch straps. Now I did have to make an adjustment to the bottom of my skirt. Since I had removed that gold edging, it actually left a raw edge of the striped fabric, so I just went in and kind of put pins along the edge of my fabric with my fabric right sides together to create a seam and hide that raw edge. So it kind of took up about 1 inch of length, but it really didn't matter that much to the skirt. After the pins were put into place at the bottom edge of my skirt to cover where the raw edge of the fabric was, I just sewed those pieces of fabric together and removed the pins, and then that was basically it for the bottom of the skirt. after I finished sewing the seam at the bottom edge of my skirt along the kind of border section of my skirt, I just pressed my seams really flat. Always press your seams, no matter if you're pressing them open or pressing them to the sides or down. It just makes everything lay a lot better and your garment fit to perfection. As I was doing the final fitting for this dress, I realized that the back of the bodice was a little snug and I didn't quite have enough fabric in order to add my zipper, so I took some extra fabric I had from the skirt and created 2 panels to sew along the opening of the back of my dress. This worked out really well because it actually added a pop and a differentiation of color, which looked really cool, but it also gave me fabric to add my zipper so that I would have room for the fit and then it wouldn't be too snug. Once the back panels were pinned into place, I attached them with my sewing machine and tried to blend them into the seam that already existed for the bottom half of my dress. Once the back panels were attached, I gave it a good press to make sure all of the fabric was lying smooth and flat, and then it is time to attach my zipper. So off camera, I sewed the back of my dress together on a basting stitch, and it is right where that stitch is that I center my zipper and pin it into place, sew it down, and then afterwards I just go in and rip out that basting stitch. If you've watched other tutorials of mine, you know that this is a technique and method that I love to do in order to attach and implement zippers. So this is what the zipper looked like with the extra panels, and I actually love how it turned out. And now that the zipper is in place and installed, it is time to add my straps, and then the dress is pretty much done. So I just took my straps and pinned them to marks that I had made on the front and the back of my dress, and then kind of just adjusted them to the length that I wanted for the fit. There's a lot of different ways that you can attach straps, but since the bodice of my dress already kind of has this black bias section, I'm going to just use black thread and add a seam right along that fabric that will be barely noticeable. Alright, here is the final design, a skirt turned into a dress. I absolutely love how this turned out. It was a super easy thrift flip because I kept the foundation of the skirt and just added the bodice, but it turned out so well, and I honestly love that extra panel in the back, and this dress is so comfortable and cool to wear in the summertime. And that's a wrap! Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you were inspired by what you saw and all of the endless possibilities for flipping thrifted clothes. If you liked today's video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on new videos in the future.